here some of what you observed in Genesis 12 through 28. There were some things that stood out to you, maybe something you hadn't seen before, or something that you thought particularly interesting. Luke, tell us something.
When Isaac was about to be sacrificed and God didn't let him be sacrificed, he provided a ram instead.
Okay, are you not familiar with that event?
No, it's just rereading it, you get to see different things about it. So.
Was there anything that you didn't remember about it from before? Or something that stood out to you this time that you didn't notice before?
But like how he was so close to actually killing him, and then
Had the knife upraised. Jake?
yeah.
Did God just make the ram appear, or wasn't? I didn't think that.
All right, that's a good question. Actually, we're going to talk about that in Bible class in a few weeks. But what happened? Was the ram already there, or did it suddenly appear? What do you think?
Was it like stuck?
It said it was caught by its horns in the thicket. So that seems to indicate to me that the ram had been there, had wandered up there and got stuck before Abraham even went up. So God provided that ram ahead of time. Right?
About that story, it said I think it said the angel of the Lord appeared to him. So,
And as a sophomore, you know what that means. Some of the freshmen don't know yet.
Isn't that Jesus?
So that is the Son of God that's appearing there when it says the angel of the Lord. So that's interesting, especially when you consider what happens later, many years later, a couple thousand years later. What happens on that same area, near that same place?
Jesus gets crucified.
Yeah. So the one who stopped Abraham from sacrificing his son a couple thousand years later is the one who lays down his life as the son. Pretty interesting, huh? Okay, what else stood out to you? Sophia?
I noticed,
Louder, please.
when Sarah and Hagar, when she told Hagar to Abraham, and then I thought it was interesting how once they did and she told her to, then she got mad
Yeah. Yes. Sarah tells Hagar and Abraham, listen, you guys get together and have a child because I'm too old. And then when it happened, she got mad. Yeah, I could say something derogatory like just like a woman, but I won't do that. I won't go there. Bill, do you want to go there?
No, not there. I was going to ask
Go
you a
ahead.
question. Okay, why did Abraham and Sarah change their name?
God changed their names. And in the case of Abraham, Abram means a father. Father of many, actually. Ab is the word for father. Abram would be many. And so you can imagine that he, as he's hanging around with other people, they say, oh, what's your name? Oh, I'm the father of many. Oh, how many children do you have? None. Okay, so then God just named it Abraham, which is father of many nations kind of idea. It's much bigger. And so he's hanging around, oh, you changed your name. What's your name now? Oh, father of great multitudes. Wow, you must have a lot of children. How many? None. I do have one on the way, though, with my slave. I can't remember exactly when that name change took place, but it is a matter of, even taking the name, it's a matter of trust that God's going to bring about what he said he would do. You see? So he has a name that is not what seems to be the way it is, but God's going to make his name true.
I just thought of that, and I don't know if this is right, but people were probably were confused why they changed that name because he didn't have nations. But
Yeah.
and it's similar to Mary, when they were probably doubting that the child was from the Holy Spirit, but she still had faith in God and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. You can always find those parallels. All right, what else stood out to you in these chapters? A lot of other things besides those two events. Anything else? Grace, anything else stand out to you? Robbie?
Well,
Oh, Lexi?
so since Sarah was Abraham's sister,
Half sister.
half sister,
Let's not make it worse than it was.
yeah, well, so the family had Abraham's dad and then
Yes, I think that's how it was. For different mother. Any other comments or questions? All right. Let's go back to the Old Kingdom. We're looking at ancient Egypt. We have made our way through the Archaic period, the United Egypt, and we're in the Old Kingdom. And I believe, let's see, what's the last thing we were looking at was,
Pyramids.
we started looking at the pyramids, right?
Yeah.
All right, did we talked about the first step pyramid built by Imhotep, correct? Which was requested by Pharaoh Zoser. And oops, I thought you were looking at the same picture I was, but I forgot to tell it to come up there. All right, so we saw this picture. Did we see the picture of the adjacent pyramids for the wives?
We're on the other side.
no,
So we got to this pyramid.
No,
no,
the one before.
Just started talking about it.
Oh, we just started?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, this is the first pyramid, the step pyramid, and you can see that there are steps going up, and built by Imhotep, who also was skilled in medicine. He was an advisor to Pharaoh Zoser. Now, sometimes it's spelled Z-O-S-E-R, sometimes D-J-O-S-E-R, same person, just different spellings. His name means the holy. His Horus name, that is the name he took as Horus, the god Horus. He also had a separate name, which was Neterpet, which means God in the flesh. So it sounds like he had a pretty high opinion of himself. There are only one resource that I've looked at speculates that Zoser, the man who built the first pyramid, was actually the same person as Ham, the son of Noah. He lived this long, and that Ham was the one behind the Tower of Babel. And when he was frustrated there, eventually when he made his way to Egypt, where his son Mizraim lived, and he came in and had this pyramid built. Imhotep's name means he who comes in peace. So interesting. All right, so this is the step pyramid, the first one built. Next to it are some pyramids built to bury the king's wives. You can see them out here. All right, any questions about the first one? Yeah.
Wait, you said that some people think that Noah's son was the one who did it.
Yeah.
But why would they have it built? Because they built the pyramids and it's not so why
Well, Ham was rebellious. If you read what happens after the flood, even Ham is the one that his father Noah had to curse Ham through his son Canaan because of Ham's irreverence toward him, which we won't get into that whole episode. But Ham was apparently rebellious. And this same book that I've read that talks about him here says that he was the one behind the rebellion against Noah by building the Tower of Babel. We're not going to listen to what Noah says God says to do. We're going to do our own thing.
How many wives did he have?
I don't know. I see at least, maybe 4 mounds there. All right. Now let's go to the one everybody knows, the Great Pyramid. Okay, this is the Great Pyramid that was built in the 4th dynasty as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu. This pyramid At present, it is 451 feet high. It used to be higher, about 490 feet. But the Arabs took the top off. The speculation is that it was made out of gold, which would be a good reason for them to take it. Some who think it was just stone said they took it and used it to build other things, but it's hard to imagine that it would be worth the trouble climbing up here and taking off the top if it was just stone. So it quite possibly was gold. And that happened in 650 AD, that they took the top off. Each side of the pyramid is 776 feet long. Now, this pyramid is made up of individual blocks. Can you imagine coming and stacking all these blocks and each side being 770 some feet long, and yet the difference between one side and another is no more than 7.9 inches. That's quite a feat. The four corners are nearly perfect with a variation of less than 1/20th of a degree. This thing is huge, and it's so close to being absolutely perfect. It covers 13 acres on its base. There are 2,300,000 blocks of limestone, each block weighing an average of 2.5 tons. This shows that after the blocks were put in place, that they had a limestone covering over it, so that made it smooth. But all that has fallen off now, except for this one piece up towards the top. The stones cover 25 million cubic feet, and it took more than 20 years to build. Napoleon Bonaparte, you've probably heard of him. He came to Egypt, conquered Egypt while he was emperor over France, and he saw the pyramids, the three that are there, and he calculated that the three pyramids contained enough stone to build a wall 10 feet high and 1 foot wide all the way around France. And you can see all the blocks next to each other. I've read that the blocks are so close together, so skillfully chiseled, that there's only enough space between each stone for a piece of paper. Here's another look. You can see how big these are, because here's people standing on top of them. I think that's the place where you can pay and actually go in the tunnel that goes inside the pyramid. I opted not to do that for a couple of reasons. One, I do have a little claustrophobia, and it's a narrow enough tunnel. They said you can't turn around, and it was over 100 degrees. And they said if you do go down the tunnel into the burial chamber, there's nothing there because they've already taken everything out, so there really wasn't anything to see. And it just sounded like that was not worthwhile for me to pay to do that. Yeah, Bill.
How far up are you allowed to climb?
You know, that's a good question. You know, in Egypt there are not guards around to keep you from doing stuff. It's amazing. Once you pay to get into the grounds area, I mean, you can walk up here, walk up to the pyramid, and pick up a piece of rock, take it with you. I didn't want to be carrying around rocks in my pockets, you know. One of the guys in our group did. He'd take a rock everywhere he went to give to his kids when he got back as souvenirs. But I mean, look how big this is. Yeah, here's that area you can pay to go in the tunnel.
So you're allowed to climb to the top?
So I don't know that if anybody would stop you. It would be pretty dangerous, I think. I don't know. I didn't see guards around that would stop you, but sometimes they're just any guards would just dress like another Arab. But they don't really have the security and stuff you might expect in something like this. Here's a close-up of looking at the stones that are used. I mean, obviously a lot of it's worn away. in different places. This one I took because I thought I saw something here. Do you see what I see? What do you see, Joel?
I don't see Iron Man.
Iron Man. Oh, that's not what I saw. I guess like looking at the clouds, whatever your imagination comes up with, right? You, Brennan?
The cross. It's like if you look straight down the line and then you see a line, but like, you don't.
Okay.
I see like
An animal, yeah. I see a lion. Here's his eye. Here's the face. And here's the mouth. There's the mane back here.
Oh.
Anybody see that? I said Harlan Lion is there on the pyramid. All right, maybe not. Okay, so here I am standing on the blocks of the pyramid. I'm just looking down at my wife from up above. She didn't want to get any higher than that. All right, so the Great Pyramid, here's a drawing of it, and you can see the entrance goes here, and the tunnel goes all the way down here to the original burial chamber. There was an escape shaft up this way. There's another tunnel here. There's the Queen's Chamber, King's Chamber, air channels. You know, what an amazing feat to build this thing out of rock and then have these tunnels and stuff inside as well. Bill?
Is it hollow inside? Like besides the top?
No, it's solid rock except for these. So you look at the rock, the stones that are on the outside, and think those go all the way through. So it's solid. Stacking all those. Amazing. Here's looking down from the top. Here's the Queen Pyramids here. There's the mortuary temple that would be where the body was prepared. There was a causeway here that went down to the temple. There was always a temple built near a burial place of Pharaoh because it was a very religious thing. Now the question always has been, how did they build the pyramids? How in the world did they move 2.5 ton pieces of rock into place with no more distance between them than a piece of paper, and to be that huge? And I'm not sure we still know, but a few years ago somebody discovered a drawing, hieroglyphic of how they may have put the stones in place anyway, and it looked like this. So you somehow you'd have it on rollers, get the rock up here into place, and then by the use of these things, pull it down so you're lifting it up in the air, and then roll it off into place. But still, even using that would be very difficult to get those rocks where they need to be. Yeah, maybe.
How would they get that machine higher? To,
You mean like further up the pyramid?
yeah.
They would have to carry it up. I don't. It's still, even if they use this, there's still a lot of things that look pretty difficult. And here we are with our modern machinery. I'm not sure we could do it, and yet they did it without all that. Pretty smart people. Yeah. Well, 20 years. Oh, by the way, let me point out that for a long time, people thought that they used slave labor. In fact, some even have put forth the ridiculous idea that the Israelites were building the pyramids, which is a totally wrong time frame. But evidence now is that they actually were the common people. In other words, they would come in the season when the farming was done, they would come and work on the pyramids. Because the villages that they have excavated that are right there indicate a care that was taken for people that wouldn't have been taken for slaves. So it looks like these were people that were engaged in other professions, and they would come work on the pyramid for a certain time of the year. Oh, I wanted to go back. Well, you can see it here. Most pictures you see the pyramids, you see it looks like it's in a desert area. But what do you see back here? Yeah, it's right on the edge of the city. You know, you rarely see that in a picture. Let me see. I'll go back to. Yeah, here you can see. See how the city is right up to the edge of where the pyramid area
I thought
is.
that was a cliff.
So did I.
So,
Yeah, that's the edge of the city.
oh,
It's right there. Here's the little temple next to the pyramid. You can see the city right there as well. Of course, when we think about the pyramids and the king being put there, we think of mummification. Here's a drawing of how a mummy is made. What they would do is, of course, take the organs out of the body of the dead person, except for his heart. They would take the organs out. And does anybody know what they did with the organs? What, Lexi? No. Well, sort of, but Jake?
They put it in like jars. And
Yeah.
stuff.
Anybody know what it's called?
And milk or something like that.
Canopic jar. This is a replica of what they look like. And so they would take an organ, like the liver, and put it in there. Put it there because he may need that in the next life. So you want to keep those for him. There was one organ, however, they didn't keep. Anybody know what that was?
Stomach.
No? The brain.
Yeah.
Why? They didn't know what it was for, so they just threw it away. They thought the heart was where your mind and stuff was. So they kept the heart in there, but they threw the brain away. And they would get the brain out by putting, do you know this?
They blow up through the nose.
Yeah. They would get an instrument up in there and pull the brain out through the nose.
oh. Did they ever study any of the organs and stuff like after they?
I don't know if they found anything in these canopic jars or not. Now once the mummification is done, and we'll see more about this in a film we're going to watch about how they were mummified. Of course, they're all wrapped up, and they would be put in a sarcophagus. This is a replica of one. Of course, it has hieroglyphics and pictures all over the outside, painted up. This one has the head of the god on it, the jackal god. But sometimes they would put the face of the person who was buried on it, so that it would be easily identified. So here's somebody dropped this once and broke the ear off. You guys can look at these things whenever you get a chance. All right, so any questions about mummification? They would put little items buried along with them as replicas of what they would have in the next life. This is a mummy that was found a number of years ago, Ramses II. You can see how he has been preserved for thousands of years. Yeah, Lexi?
Why did it take so long? Like, because I read that it took 10 weeks to do.
Well, okay, I got to get the organs out, take care of them, and then they cover the body with nitrate. There's a process, and that takes a while for whatever happens there to dry out the body. So it just, the process just takes a while for the different chemicals that they use to work. And they're individually wrapping it so carefully. So that's the explanation. All right. Another thing that was built during the Old Kingdom was the Great Sphinx. You've heard of that, probably seen pictures of it. The Sphinx is 66 feet high. Famous, as you can see, it has the paws of a lion, the body of a lion, and the head of a man. That picture I did not take. This one I did. That's as close as I could get to it. They had it fenced off here. But you get an idea of how big this is. Of course, he's famous for the fact that his nose is missing. His nose fell off. There is something here, a stone tablet, which I'll talk about later. Just keep in mind that it's there in between his legs. All right, that's the Great Sphinx. All right, any questions? Yes, Bill?
How tall is a human compared to that?
A human?
Yeah.
66.
Well, that's 66 feet, so, you know, a tenth of the way up would be 6 foot, right? Approximately, or 6'6". A tenth of that. I mean, a person standing would probably be like that, I guess. Yeah, it's too bad there wasn't anybody standing there, but it was more than likely to get close enough. All right, that brings us to the end of the Old Kingdom period, and we're going to continue looking at particularly the pyramid as we consider that. You have a question?
Does that thing, does it serve any purpose other than to look at, like a statue, like the pyramid,
No,
like a tomb?
no, that's a good question. The only purpose was for the one who built this to memorialize himself, and we'll see who that is a little bit later in the film we'll watch. But yeah, it's not a tomb or anything. It's just a huge statue.
It says religious worldview concept.
Yeah, you don't need to know that consubstantiality. It's just the idea that everything that happens with them is connected with the universe. It's changeless. So their religious world and their secular world were intertwined. All right, any other questions? All right, we're going to watch a video beginning today and into tomorrow that talks about the building of the pyramid. This is done by David McCalley, who is an excellent artist, and usually writes a book about what he is presenting on these films, and I think you'll enjoy it. So pay close attention to what he has to say about the building of the pyramid and just the life that was part of Egyptian pharaoh back then.
These are the pyramids of Giza. Of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, these are the only structures that still remain. And remain they will, as long as any man-made object exists on this planet. The pyramids were already about 1,500 years old when the Greek historian Herodotus first wrote about them 5 centuries before the birth of Christ. They presented a tantalizing mystery to Herodotus. And in many ways, that mystery has survived, along with the Great Pyramids themselves, over thousands of years. Like every tourist who's ever journeyed to Egypt, Herodotus was fascinated by all he saw. The first thing he wanted to know was why these incredible structures were built. Then he wanted to know how. How could a society which existed 2,000 years before the flowering of his own magnificent culture have been powerful enough, ingenious enough, dedicated enough, and organized enough to have erected such imposing monuments on the edge of this unforgiving desert? His first answer was the Nile. Herodotus called Egypt the gift of the Nile, and one glance at the disparity between these arid sands and the green Nile Valley tells us why. For it was here, between the edges of the desert and the banks of the Nile, that civilization first appeared in the form of early settlements. These early settlers caught fish, domesticated animals, fashioned metal, shaped bricks out of the river's mud, and learned to make paper from a river plant called papyrus. They also grew grain, thousands of acres of it, in a land where there was no appreciable rainfall. They were able to do all of this because of the Nile. Until the construction of the Aswan High Dam in the mid-1960s, the Nile would unfailingly overflow its banks once a year. This annual flood, called the inundation, irrigated fields, filled canals and reservoirs, and deposited a rich layer of black silt over vast tracts of farmland, which would otherwise have been nothing but desert. As the flood waters receded, farmers quickly moved into action, surveying boundaries, clearing fields, and planting seeds in the freshly nourished soil. Such communal efforts also nourished these early settlements. And by around 3000 BC, there were established communities along the 600-mile length of the Nile. The valley and its surrounding territory had also become organized into two independent and often antagonistic nations, called simply Upper and Lower Egypt. This is a slate palette portraying a king named Narmer, who we believe to be the ruler who unified Upper and Lower Egypt, and thereby started the civilization on its path to greatness. It's kept here in the famous Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Though we know very little about Narmer or how he brought the two regions together, we can identify each of them by looking at the crowns worn by the king. On one side, Narmer is wearing the crown of Upper Egypt, shaped something like a bowling pin. On the other side, he's wearing the crown of Lower Egypt, shaped something like a chair. From then on, the crowns were combined to symbolize the unification. After Narmer, there were approximately 30 dynasties, spanning about 3,000 years of ancient Egyptian civilization. Historians group these dynasties into three major periods: the Old, the Middle, and the New Kingdoms. Our story takes place in the Old Kingdom's fourth dynasty, about 2500 BC. It is the story of Khufu, one of Egypt's most illustrious kings and the builder of the Great Pyramid. It was during the Old Kingdom that Egypt was becoming the major civilization of the world. Central to the understanding of why the Egyptian civilization worked the way it did was the role and function of kingship and the organizational network that flowed from the royal palace. Although the king was all-powerful, he was supposed to be led by a guiding concept known as Maat. Maat was the ideal of a universe in perfect harmony, as it was said to have been in the time of the gods. This perfect order also had to do with right and wrong, and how the society as a whole functioned. Maat was often represented as a goddess who wore a single feather in her headdress, symbolizing the delicate balance between stability and chaos, both in the universe and within the human condition. The king stood at the apex of a pyramid society, a few people at the top, supported by a huge base of peasants and laborers. This was an aristocratic culture, ruled by a privileged class which drew power from its relationship to the king. And this king was not merely a privileged mortal, he was also considered to be a god who drew his power from the very essence of creation.
The world began as a watery chaos, which was called Num. And it was from this chaos that the sun god Re emerged onto a mound. And the great mound from which Re created the universe and all its living things became a shape of great creative power, sacred to all the world. But unlike other mountains upon this earth, the only being who can ascend to its pinnacle is the god himself, the living son of Re, king of Upper and Lower Egypt.
Everything and everyone in the universe has a place. It was my grandfather Sneferu's place to be king. Now he has become Osiris, ruler of the underworld. And so it is my father, Khufu's place to be king. As it will someday be my older brother, Kawau's. That is all part of the balance of Maat, and it is most important that Maat be maintained in these troubled and difficult times after the death of a great king. All of this has been taught to me from a very young age by the royal vizier, Ankaf, who knew that it was my place to be a scribe, a man of learning.
Hodedem, you will be our eyes and ears throughout the kingdom.
Thank you, sire.
And you will help keep my name alive when I leave this earth to become Osiris.
Not for many, many years, I hope, father.
Whenever it happens. We must be prepared for it.
Yes, we certainly must. Which leads me to the subject of your own eternal home, the great lord of the two lands.
My pyramid must be every bit as grand as my father's,
Indeed.
but without the compromises forced upon the builder. As you recall, Angad, when my father's first pyramid was half completed, cracks and faults began to form, and there was clearly instability within the structure.
Is there anyone who did not receive the supplemental pages or the replacement pages for your notes?